on, everybody? This is dkdynamite, and today we're going to be talking about a Zombies Chronicles 2 for Black Ops 4 and how the release date could actually be close to the official release of Modern Warfare's first big DLC drop, which is expected to release on December the 3rd. Now, we're also going to be going over various assets and animations that could very well be used in a DLC 5. So first and foremost, I want to give a big shout out to my good buddy Josh Wukul, who actually helped me structure today's video and gave me some ideas that I hadn't previously thought of. So the first thing I have written down here is classified. We have blueprints from Broken Arrow showing a ray gun Mark IV and Mark V. Now when I first saw this, I was like, okay, this is definitely a teaser for the wonder weapons we're going to be seeing when the Ether storyline returns. And then Ether returned with Alpha Omega this past July, and we ended up getting the ray gun Mark II variants. And Alpha Omega is of course a Broken Arrow centric map, so I would have thought that the ray gun Mark IV and Mark V could have fit perfectly in this Broken Arrow map, and what do you know, we didn't get that. So I was like, okay, maybe DLC 4. Then Tagger Toten comes out and we get the Thunder Gun, Tundra Gun, and that new Wunderwaffe, aka the Tempest for multiplayer. So then I was like, okay, I'm scratching my head now, what happened to these weapons from these blueprints? And that got me thinking, maybe because of the budget cuts, Treyarch had to reuse as many assets as possible and not make any new wonder weapons from the ground up. So instead of seeing this new revamped ray gun Mark IV or Mark V, we got the Mark II variants on Alpha Omega, and then a new version of the Thunder Gun on Tag, along with a ported Tempest for multiplayer that turned into a really weak Wunderwaffe. Now, there's also a possibility that the ray gun Mark IV and Mark V could make an appearance in the DLC 5 map, since Broken Arrow does, of course, play a huge part in transit at the Hanford site in Washington, so maybe we'll get some buildables to these ray guns in the future. But if not, this would definitely be a scrapped concept for wonder weapons that were supposed to appear in the original DLC 3 and 4, but we may never know. Now, the next thing I have is Dead of the Night. The actual scratch animation that the Nosferatu can do on the player is very damn similar to the same scratch animation that Denizens were able to do to you in the original Transit. So if they were to bring back Denizens in some way, shape, or form in the Transit remake, they could very well just use that exact same scratch animation that they already have here in game. But what I heard from reliable sources a few months ago is that everything you didn't like about the original Transit won't be present in the remake. So what I could assume is, instead of running through the fog and then having Denizens jump on you, there won't be any fog, but instead there might be a dog round of some sort with Denizens only, and then they can scratch you if they get close enough to you. So the next thing is also on Dead of the Night, and it's the lion statue that we remember from Die Rise, specifically the main Easter egg of Die Rise, where you have to shoot the ball with the soliquifier if you're doing the Richtofen side of the Die Rise Easter egg. Now, I am aware that this lion statue has been present in many previous Call of Duties and different multiplayer maps, campaign missions, all types of different crap, but it is great to see that that lion statue is looking fresh for Black Ops 4, and that asset is definitely ready to be ported over into a potential Die Rise remake. But it's also worth noting that Die Rise has the least amount of assets in Black Ops 4. There's so many for Transit, the entirety of Buried is done, but there's only a few sprinkles of assets ready for Die Rise. So that gets me thinking, will they use assets from the construction site in Blackout to kind of have a high-rise ready to be ported over into Zombies? But according to reliable inside leaks, the maps are already finished, so who knows what they actually did. Now, the next thing I have here is from Ancient Evil, the sleeping zombies that are standing right next to you right when you spawn into a game. That's a very familiar mechanic that we remember from the original Transit. When you spawn right in at Bus Depot, you'll have, I think, 4 zombies just sleeping right next to you, and within like 5 seconds or so, they'll start attacking you. So could be a mechanic that Treyarch really likes and wants to use one more time within the DLC 5 remake of Transit, but that's just a fun idea. Now, the next thing here is on Alpha Omega. We have this really random photograph of the western town that is buried, and really doesn't fit in with the storyline of Alpha Omega at all, so this really threw me off guard. Shout out to Josh once again for actually showing this to me. I'm not sure why this is in the bunker, but it's just there, so could be a big hint that yes, Buried is coming back in some way, shape, or form within the DLC 5 remake. And Alpha Omega obviously came out after Buried was fully remastered for Blackout in the area known as Ghost Town. So that also gets me thinking, what if in the Buried remake we also see the western town above ground, right? The multiplayer map known as Standoff, which was remade into Outlaw in Black Ops 3. Since that's already in Ghost Town with Buried, what if all of that is put into the DLC 5 remake of Buried in Zombies Chronicles 2? Not only will you have the classic area of Buried, but you can go above ground using the tunnels and have a whole other area to explore. So that would make Buried extremely huge challenge, but will definitely change the pace of gameplay very, very much. Now, next up we have something that could be a bit of a stretch, and that's the actual truck that's featured on Militia. So I noticed this a couple of months ago, and it's the exact same truck that's present in the zombie map Farm from Black Ops 2 Transit. So with a remake of Transit would obviously come a remake of Farm. So they could very well just port over this truck from one place to another. But again, just like the statue from Die Rise, I'm very well aware that many assets are reused across several different Black Ops games and can even be reused in other non-trailer Call of Duties as well. So a very basic truck that was put in Farm is also present here in Black Ops 4 multiplayer. We also have some very interesting assets over on the multiplayer map Remnant, aka the Zombies Museum. You have the entire transit bus already remastered from the ground up on Black Ops 4 within that map. We not only have Ted that's in that bus, we even have a new model for Ted that was added into Blackout with legs. So it'd be kind of funny if they reuse assets from the Atom robot and Alpha Omega, also known as the Civil Protector from Shadows of Evil, and maybe somehow upgrade Ted in the DLC 5 Transit remake so that he can actually stand up from the bus, help us kill zombies around the map. That would just be insane. And we also have the lava from the very last step of the Tag Their Totem main Easter egg. You can just port over some of that lava into the DLC 5 remake of Transit if they were to add lava once again in a potential Zombies Chronicles 2. Next up we have the Jeb Brown radios from Tag Their Totem, right? We have a lot of backstory and rich information about the creator of the Pack-a-Punch machine, learning that his mother is actually the ghost from Buried, right? The ghost witches that you actually encounter within the mansion. So we got some rich backstory behind Jeb Brown himself, but what is that really doing, right? Is it just closing up loose ends for hardcore Ether fans out there, or could they be hinting that there's more than meets the eye with him? Could you play as him one day? Could you see him as an actual character in a Buried remake? Will the actual ghost witches return if you go through the mansion again in the DLC 5 remake of Buried? So a lot of possibilities there. Could just be closing off some loose ends, as I said, or it could be hinting at something more that could be present in a potential Zombies Chronicles 2. But besides some of those, we obviously have the cornfield from Operation Apocalypse Z, right? They actually turned most of the farmland area into the cornfield, which again could just be ported over right into a Transit remake and can make the cornfield that we all remember from the original Transit. So boom, there's some assets done right there. We also have the Pandemic LTM from Blackout, which is literally turned. So I think with the Zombies Chronicles 2 and the remake of Transit and Buried would definitely come the return of a game mode like Turned. And they can even make the mode exactly what they wanted it to be back in the Black Ops 2 days, but because of hardware limitations, they just couldn't meet some of those expectations. So modes like Turned and Grief were definitely watered down quite a bit, but now with the capabilities they have on current gen hardware, they could really beef up those game modes and make them more replayable as ever. So again, Pandemic is literally Turned. The assets to play as a zombie are already in the game. Last but not least, a little bit of a stretch, but a cool idea too, is that the explosive barriers around Tag Their Totem kind of remind Josh and I of the barriers that block certain sections in Buried, where you have to have Leroy kind of go through and destroy those areas, right? There were rumors many months ago that Leroy might not return in the Buried remake. So with that being said, we'll need some type of device to open up certain sections of the map, because we're assuming that those sections will also be blocked off again. So people suggested maybe the hacker from Moon could make a return, or maybe they'll just reuse the asset from Tag and give us the dynamite bombs again. We have to destroy certain areas of Buried to, open up the entirety of the map. So we'll just have to wait and see how that's handled, but it would be cool to see Leroy on current gen hardware, continuation to his story, and maybe even tying him back to some more rich lore when he was the Wolf King's servant. So there's always a possibility of seeing what can happen there. Now in regards to the release date for Zombies Chronicles 2, I know the first major DLC drop for Modern Warfare is on December the 3rd, and with previous rumors from reliable inside sources that December and January were both months that were kind of floating around for potential release date of DLC 5, I think it does work in Activision's schedule to be like, okay, we have Modern Warfare DLC 1 on December the 3rd, then maybe on December 17th or even December 24th, Christmas Eve, we put out a Zombies Chronicles 2. And then, if not that, if December really doesn't work, we always have National 115 Day in January. So yes, January the 15th, which is a Wednesday, would be a really ideal day. So if they put it out in December, it just means that Activision wants to get a nice Q4 sales boost, especially from Black Ops 4 Zombies. And it also makes sense to say, well, the longer you wait, the less player base you'll have in Black Ops 4 Zombies, right? It's not like Black Ops 3 where the player retention was so high to the point where they were able to release a DLC 5 8 months after Revelations in May of 2017. Again, multiple years after the release of Black Ops 3, and Chronicles was still the best-selling DLC pack of all time, at least on PlayStation. So I just don't think they could pull that off with Black Ops 4 based on controversy and the low player base. I think the sooner you put out that map pack, the better. The stronger the player base, and more the merrier, right? I think if you put out Grief and Turned as well with the Zombies Chronicles 2, you would also want a higher player base with that and not a low one. So again, the longer you wait, the worse that player base is going to be. And another reminder though is that Chronicles 1 took a while to come out. It was literally 8 months after Revelations, 8 months after DLC 4 when DLC 5 finally dropped. So for all we know, they could wait just as long as last time. They could think, well, it worked last time, let's release it again in May of 2020. What if they do that? Or what if they say pre-order Black Ops 5 and receive Zombies Chronicles 2 on Black Ops 4, or pre-order Black Ops 5 and receive the 3 Victus remakes in Black Ops 5? Even though I wouldn't really like that, because it makes sense to truly end the ether with Black Ops 4 instead of dragging it on even more into the next game. It just makes sense to put out a Victus Chronicles in Black Ops 4 where all the assets are already laid out, when it comes to Black Ops 5, based on leaks, it appears that they're going to be using the same engine Modern Warfare's on. So that would mean they have to remake most of these assets from the ground up, because I would say most things can't just be ported over. It's still technically the same engine, but since Modern Warfare's on a very heavily modified version of the Call of Duty engine, most assets have to be remade to account for the high capabilities of this new engine. So why would they want to go through all that work again, redo the entirety of Buried that's already in Blackout, just for the sake of putting it in Black Ops 5 with a perk system that most people probably would prefer? But with Black Ops 4, it's the end of the ether. Victus deserves closure. DLC 5 belongs in Black Ops 4 so that Black Ops 5 could truly be a fresh start for Treyarch. They could start a new story, continue Chaos full force, whatever it is. Let ether rest, finish everything off that has to do with ether in this game where it belongs. But that is about it. This has been DK Dynamite. Check out links down below in the description. What do you guys think about Zombies Chronicles 2? Does a release date make sense after Modern Warfare's first big DLC drop? Does it make sense on National 115 Day? Or would you rather see the DLC 5 release maybe later in May or later next summer? Leave all your thoughts, and peace out, everyone.